Hello, everybody. How's it going? Oh, wow. I've got three Bidens behind me. Look at that. In case anybody's wondering why the TV is set up like that, it's a DirecTV channel, channel 200, and it lets you watch. You only can watch 4 shows. They pick them, and it's CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and BBC. Usually Fox News decides not to put Biden on. It's really fun to watch. But today, I guess, because I don't know why they would put that on. I'm surprised. BBC has opted out of Biden and talking about the Tulsa massacre. Anyway, long time no speak. I wish it was under better circumstances because it's been a rough few weeks for this portfolio. Oh, I got an email. I just want to make sure it's nothing in stock related. Nope, it's not. Let's talk. Let's talk about IMVT. So, again, big disclaimer, more disclaimers than normal. I don't know anything about biotech, like truly nothing about science. All I do is I could read some analyst reports and I could ask some people about it. But the only reason I got involved in this, unfortunately, was because of this special situation involving Roivant, the parent company of IMVT, putting out a 13D back in March, saying that they wanted to acquire the stake that they didn't already own. And that was after it blew up from the reason why it blew up again today. So with that being said, what happened today? So they put out an update on their only drug. It's not even their lead drug, it's their only drug. And there were a few things that the street is very upset about. The first is that the cholesterol increases, they are affecting all indications, not just the TED indication. It was hoped for that it was just the TED indication, but they halted all the trials outside of TED. So I thought it is reasonable to assume that it might have affected all indications. But anyway, that's a big deal. The second thing that they were upset about, the street, was that the initial efficacy data from TED, which was only like a small number of patients, was not as great as people hoped for. Again, this wasn't a full trial. This was like a few people. And finally, I think the street's worried that they haven't even discussed this with FDA yet. So you run the risk that even in the scenario where these drugs, this drug can be tested in all the indications they want tested in, that come the fall, FDA pushes back and makes them do something preliminary before they can start running these trials, whether that's a phase 1 trial or it's pre-IND kind of stuff, to see whether or not the cholesterol is a big deal across indications. So it's a lot to unpack. Let's start with what I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not this drug has any real commercial potential years from now, whether or not it ever gets approved in any of these indications, or whether or not it's commercially viable based on the cholesterol issues it has. All I can tell you is that from people that I've spoken to, that this is somewhat expected based on what we knew back in February, and that it is manageable, the cholesterol issues, based on the severity of these other indications, and based on that in a lot of situations, you take the drug from an acute perspective in high doses at first to manage your symptoms, and then you might take it at a much lower dose for a maintenance perspective. It makes it tricky for how the company is going to manage this in clinical trial, but that's something that they're gonna have to figure out with the FDA to figure out how to do it. So all that being said, when Roivant put out their 13D in early March, we don't know. At that point, it was 5 weeks into the halting of the trials. We don't know what they knew regarding the cholesterol and the efficacy of these drugs. All the data was unblinded back then. So they theoretically had access to everything back in the first week of March. The stock was trading between 13.50 and 15 the days leading up to that 13D. and it was trading at 20 or 25, a few weeks before that. So the unaffected price, it's a very interesting situation here from a risk arb perspective, because when it was trading at 1350, the day they issued the 13D, it popped to, whatever, high teens, and then settled at 16 or something, or 1550. I don't remember exactly. And a lot of people were anchoring on the 1350 as the unaffected price for what Roivant would have to pay to acquire the minority they didn't already own. I argue that that's not correct, because if Roivant had material non-public information, and just because they say we want to buy you at a specific spot of time, when they're in possession of that information, does not make that an unaffected price, because they know stuff that we don't know. And that's just logical, right? But regardless, back then, all the sell side, and sell side's biotech analysts, so they don't do M&A, or this kind of situation is very bizarre. A minority purchase from the majority in the middle of a major hiccup in the drug trial, and the majority saying that they have MNPI and we don't have it. But it's funny to me, because back then, sell side said that maybe they'd pay a 30 or 40 or 50% premium, but they use that 1350 as the reference point, and maybe it goes for 18 or 19 or 17 or whatever. And you fast forward to today, and the news came out, and the stock traded between 11 and 12.50 for most of the day, and then it completely tanked at the end of the day, and millions of shares traded the last 30 minutes because it got downgraded the last 30 minutes, and it closed at like 940, I think. Now, the 940 price is very interesting to me, because you could argue two things here. You could argue first that it has embedded in it some M&A premium. And if Roivant came out tomorrow and said, we have no interest in buying this company anymore, it would go to 740. And that's probably fair. It probably would go down $1 to $2 to $3 even, if Roivant came out and said they didn't want to buy it. So now you could argue that the unaffected price is lower than the 940 it's trading at now. Maybe it's 840 or 740. Of course, it was $11 like 30 minutes ago. So, these things move so much. This isn't how committees negotiate on price over a 30-minute change in price from 11 to 950. I'm going to stop for a wine break. So if you look at other minority purchases from majority companies, the premiums actually go as much as 100%. It could be anywhere between 50% is on the very low end. It'll be more like 70 or 80 or 90% would be what they would pay. And usually it's on the unaffected price. Again, I don't know what you used unaffected here. Do you use the 1350 before they put the 13D out, or do you use the 950 it's at right now? Yes, Paul. Oh, yes. Definitely wine now. Wine already. So the reason why I'm talking about this so much, and you shouldn't buy this based on a takeout. You never buy anything based on a takeout. So we'll talk about MagnaChip after this. In this situation, I admittedly know less than nothing when it comes to this drug and biotech. I don't know a lot about semiconductors either, but at least I know how to read a balance sheet and a financial statement, and I can make reasonable assumptions about what a company's worth. But here, there's no earnings, and it's all hinges on based on these drugs getting approved one day. The lower this goes, the more likely it is that Roivant buys it. It's twisted like that. If they came out with an update today that was glowing and the stock went to 20 or 22, Roivant would have had a harder time paying that 50, 75, 80% premium, because the unaffected to me would have been the 20 or 22, given that Roivant had material non-public information back in March. That 1350 didn't mean anything to me. So today, as we sit here, it's much more likely Roivant buys Immunovant. I don't know how to say that word. Immunovant? I think it's Immunovant. Roivant. Immunovant. It's a Vant. They're all the little shit companies are Vants. So I think it's Immunovant. Today versus yesterday, it's much more likely they get acquired. They take out the minority. And one thing that's changed the last time I did a YouTube was I spoke to a guy that looked into their pipeline, Roivant's pipeline, and this company, Immunovant, is by far the most important aspect of their pipeline. His words were, quote, "They have nothing." So at this point, it's $1 billion market cap, or maybe even less today. After today, let me see what it's at. Yeah, 920 million plus options or whatever. So let's say $1 billion. And oh, this is interesting. It's $1 billion market cap, and they have 400 million in cash, which they'll burn over the next 3 years. So there's no real reason to value that cash, except you need it, right? You'd have to do secondaries and stuff to raise it, so it's there. And if Roivant purchased it tomorrow at $1 billion, what it's trading on now, and just the minority, the 42.5%, they could take in the entire company that they don't own for the cash in the balance sheet. Now, again, that's totally ridiculous. They can't buy it at $10. It's trading at $10, and the cash is needed. They need the cash to run the company. I think they said it'll get them to the second half of 2023. The lower it goes, the less a dilution and the less material the M&A is to Roivant. So Roivant has a $5 billion pre-money valuation, and it's a $7 billion post-money valuation, but the SPAC is trading below $10 right now. So you should assume that at least 50% of the SPAC is going to redeem, right? So, and then also it's going to go down below 10 once it de-SPACs. So let's say it goes to 7. Just making that number up. On a pre-money valuation, that would be $3.5 billion. And on a post-money, let's say they keep $1 billion, it'll be at like 4.2 or 4.3 billion. So if it's trading at let's just go with 4 billion just to be conservative. Let's say it's trading at $4 billion after it de-SPACs, and it has $1.5 billion of cash and $2.5 billion enterprise value. And Immunovant is trading here. Let's say it doesn't go up or down at all. It's trading here, $920 million market cap, $500 million enterprise value, which is hilarious because, again, if Roivant has a $2.5 billion enterprise value and it only owns half of this thing, and most of the rest of their pipeline is extremely early, they have one other drug, some dermatology drug that's going to be up for approval at the end of this year. I mean, obviously there's an arb and a disconnect between those two valuations, and they see it too. Hence why they want to roll in the other half they don't own. It's also extremely messy for them to have this larger public company, their anchor drug, and Roivant public, right? They have a very small stake, $100 million stake or something in another public company, but that's a rounding error in a $5 or $7 billion company. But when this was 15 and it was trading at $1.5 billion, when they put the 13D out, it was very material. It is still very material to them. So how does this play out? So there's not going to be any news about this drug for many months, right? They're going to do an FDA meeting. The FDA meeting is going to take months to arrange, and then it's going to take a couple months to get the results of it. A friend of mine did a phone call with the management team today, and the company seems pretty confident that the FDA would be okay with them starting up these trials. So that tail risk of that FDA saying you can't restart these trials is rather low to the company. Again, biotech CEOs have been known to lie before, or at least be very optimistic. I shouldn't say lie. Well, they are known to lie, but in this situation, you might just be very optimistic. I can't tell you how this is going to play out, obviously, but I can tell you that I think there's a very high probability of Roivant buying Immunovant in the next 6 to 9 months. I would think it happens in the October, November, December timeframe, but your guess is as good as mine. It needs a de-SPAC, which means Roivant has to close its SPAC deal before they can really get into intense negotiations over price. Though they can do price now. They can have negotiations over price now and then just figure out how many shares you get after the fact. I thought it was really positive that the company mentioned that they hired advisors, which is a very good advisor they hired, and they also hired a law firm, obviously. If you should assume, this is also very important, you should assume that a month ago, when Roivant announced the SPAC deal, that both the SPAC sponsors and the PIPE owners knew what the outcome was going to be in this situation, or at least very close to what this outcome is. They would not have done the PIPE and this and signed the DA on the SPAC just a month ago, so close to them telling the market what is going to happen with this drug and the future of this drug. So nothing that came out today should make you think that Roivant's now going to not want to buy this. And it's funny because a friend of mine spoke to a few different of the sell-siders today. And almost universally, the sell side thinks that Roivant is not going to buy them, and that it's kind of a false flag, that they're just trying to prop the stock up or whatever. It's not going to happen. Before today, almost every sell side I think had a buy on this thing, and there's already been 3 downgrades today. So the setup now, I don't know whether it goes to 7 or 6 or 8 or whatever. Traded so many shares today in the last hour and a half, and last 30 minutes. I mean, the setup just gets better and better as it gets lower and lower. And that sounds ridiculous, but the idea behind it is that they can pay the 75, 80, 85% premium because it blew up. You know what just came to my mind actually? Pivotal. Good old Pivotal. So PVTL used to be a public company that was IPO'd by Dell and VMware, by Dell, I think, actually. And it IPO'd at 15, and then they had some terrible quarter, and the stock went down 30% or 40%, and it fell to 7 or 8, something like that, whatever, 9, way below 10. And we woke up one day, I never owned Pivotal. I just followed it because of the Dell stuff. And we woke up one day, and VMware acquired them for 15, the price of the IPO. And it was a 75 or 80%, purchase price off the unaffected. They never would have done that if it didn't blow up. I'm not saying VMware wanted to own it, but that wouldn't have given them the opportunity to consolidate it into the parent. And that's exactly the situation here. So if this went to 7, let's say, then if they could take it out of 10, you could take it out for its cash on its balance sheet. There literally would be no dilution to Roivant, and they'd own the whole company, not just 60% of it. But of course, they have to fund the drug trials going forward, which is a cash burn. So the lower it goes, the higher of the margin of safety for me here. I know that's the case with most stocks, not usually the case with biotechs, because biotechs are, especially like this, is one drug. If they don't buy it and the FDA decides that the drug can't work as intended based on its cholesterol issues, then it's a 0. It's worth 0. So, your sizing of this has to be commensurate to knowing that it could be a 0. I mean, my thoughts are very clouded now based on how shitty it traded today. But and I didn't do much with it up until the last 15 minutes. But I did. I doubled my position in the last 15 minutes, no, not doubled it. I guess I increased it 50% in the last 15 minutes. And my common position is like 12% position now. And I have like 100 basis points, 1% in call spreads. So I would lose, 12% of my portfolio if it went to 0, after already losing today 3% of my portfolio on this thing. So, it's risky. It's really, really risky. The time frame to me would be that you don't hear anything until after they close the Roivant deal. However, given that it blew up so much today, and if it continues to get weaker, you could see a preliminary price come out. There's no reason why they can't make an offer so that at least they can use the reference price of where it was trading the day they made the offer. So for example, let's say tomorrow they come out, they see a close at 940, and they say, we offer $14 a share, a 50% premium to the 950 it was trading at. Well, it would probably immediately trade to 14.50 or 15 or something, which is hilarious because no one believes that they're going to buy it right now. And it would be acceptable for the most part to use that 950 as the reference price, or the 940 or whatever, because they made a definitive offer and they put it on the table. And then the next step would be either closing it at that $14 or $15, which I don't think they'd be able to, honestly, or bumping it at some point a few months from now to say, okay, we gave you a sweetener, we'll give it to you at 16. We'll pay 16 or 17, which is a 70% premium to the unaffected. And they're thrilled. I mean, they didn't probably think they'd ever get the thing at $16 or $17. It was trading at 50 in January before the cholesterol issues. So I could definitely see them doing something like that. I'm not saying tomorrow, but I can assure you that they are thinking hard about the opportunistic ways to take advantage of a low stock price. They can't buy stock in the open market. They're in the middle of a negotiation with Immunovant about acquiring them. So they're in possession of material non-public information from that perspective. So definitely don't expect any of that. But the lower it goes, the more likely you'll see something really bold, is my guess, in a shorter period of time. Now, on the bear side, there's only one drug. So management's always going to tell you that the drug is great and we feel good about it. So you can't really believe anything that they say. I'm not just relying on management. I talk to other people that know about drugs and about this drug, and about the indications it's involved in. The other thing that's interesting to me is that at the end of March, which was 2 full months after these trials halted, they granted management the early options and the early stock with a 17 strike in the options and a 17, handle for the stock comp. The stock comp doesn't matter, of course, they own it now, but still they got less because it was referenced at 17. I wouldn't be so surprised if they think that the news is not as bad as the market thinks it is. And they price those options then knowing what their views are of the future of this drug. And, the next steps might be very different than what they expected before they knew it would go down 38% today. In a good way. Again, it would be Roivant being much more aggressive and trying to come forward with a go forward plan. So that's where I'm at. I will continue to add as it goes lower. And if I take a total loss on it, I take a total loss on it. I make big positions. As everybody knows, I lost a third of my portfolio in BMYRT. And though that's not lost anymore because the last traded at $1.40. So at that mark, I only lost like half of a third, 17% or whatever, at $1.40. So anyway, that's how I size my positions. I look at them all after tax, as everybody knows, because that's all that matters is after tax. So if I lose the 11% here, I lose like 5.5 or 6% after tax, which is big, but doable with other positions I have, which I will now talk about. Is there any questions on Immunovant? I love saying Immunovant. Let's see what we got here. Any thoughts on AMC Munder? I'll get to that at the end. Did Matt say what wine he's drinking? No, Matt did not. It's not Dano Goche though. It's something I found in the back of my cellar. Not expensive or anything. I think I have the bottle here. Actually, Michael, you'll appreciate this. This was a Wine Access private label. I think I paid $20 for something for it, $25. It's 2015, and it was sitting in the way back of my cellar. I love saying cellar like I'm like super rich person. I'm not a super rich person. I should just call it a wine closet. Anyway, clouded thoughts have nothing to do with the 1 p.m. wine. That's true. Dan Hurley, go fuck yourself. When is the Roivant IPO expected to close? They said Q3. And I would guess, I was told that a lot of the SPACs are backed up, though, SPAC transactions have ground to a halt. So maybe that'll get easier. But I would guess it closes. I think it's now been a full month, maybe 3 more months. So June, July, August. So maybe it closes in September. If it closes in September, I think that it's reasonable to assume within 60 days or 90 days of that, you get an announcement about the deal. But I think it could happen much sooner. Like I said, you could have it happen tomorrow. They don't even have to tell you exactly what it is. They could say, we propose $14 mixed stock and cash, whatever, just to make a reference point of today's stock price. All right. I'll go on to MagnaChip, and then we can go back to this if anyone has any questions. So the MagnaChip thing is, just a constant headache, but really it's all the same as it was before. So, it came out on Friday that the United States is going to look into whether or not there is foreign issues with China acquiring the company. CFIUS is called, the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States, I think is what it stands for. And stock was only down 2.5% today, though it was down last week, I think, when it was leaked that this happened, because they got the letter on May 26th in Korea, and then May 26th in the United States, which is hours and hours and hours later, the stock went down a lot that day. So I'm sure it was leak central. It happens. And it's the reason why I'm so skirmish with this thing when it goes up or down, because I assume someone knows something that I don't know, because I don't ever know anything. But anyway, especially not with South Korean stocks. So why are they looking into this? What's the timing? What's the issue? So they have 90 days to review it. Once MagnaChip files the required documentation, and then they can extend it 90 more days if they need more time. There's no actual time frame for MagnaChip to submit the documentation, so I have no idea how long it's going to take. MagnaChip is kind of adamant that they don't have any business in the United States. They have a PO box, literally a PO box in Delaware. And there's no reason why the United States has any jurisdiction over this. Why did this happen? It happened a week after the South Korea summit with the United States. Did the United States ask South Korea about it? And South Korea said, we're going to let it go by. So the United States said, we want to take a look at it first. Did South Korea say, hey, can you guys please look into this so you can give us cover when we block it? You know what? I don't care. I'm so sick of fucking talking about MagnaChip and about this stupid deal. It's a $23 stock, okay? There's been a lot of pushback on whether there's $10 a share in cash, $9 a share in cash, $8 a share in cash come the end of this year. Use whatever number you want to. If anybody thinks my thesis here is based on $1 of cash here or there, it is not, okay? Why don't we use $8? I think it's closer to $9 or $9.50, but let's use $8, okay? And again, I don't just use cash. I try to adjust the balance sheet with working capital, because some quarters there's working capital draw, some quarters there's working capital gains. Use whatever number you want to. I just don't care. Okay. So $8 minus $23 equals $15. Okay. They should do as much as $1.50 in earnings next year. As I said in my last YouTube or 2 YouTubes ago, everything's sandbagged in guidance. And there's no guidance now. So the sell side didn't actually even up the numbers last quarter because there's no guidance. So not only is that number wrong, it's probably sandbagged on top of being wrong since there's no guidance. 2350 is my realistic, not blue sky, my realistic scenario of earnings, and free cash flow might even be better than that next year, considering the fact that they don't have any capital projects after this year. So at $23 with an $8 in net cash, it's trading at 10 times earnings. Semiconductor is trading at 10 times earnings, growing high teens, low 20s, double-digit bottom line, a 10% low double-digit top-line revenue grower. It's not as cyclical as people think of semiconductors. This is not a Micron. Everyone lumps all these semis all in the same basket, and this is a very high secular grower over the next 5 years, and it's booming. So why did 10 different firms want to acquire this at a price higher than $20? 4 of those firms were still looking to acquire it on the day that MagnaChip was acquired for $29 a share, and they hadn't had a chance yet to make a bid for the company. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we do in Nora. We count. I don't have an outcome for you about what happens if it breaks. There is only 2 outcomes. Okay. One that I'm highly confident of, they will do some sort of return of capital program. Now, I'm not highly confident of what that will be. right? We talked about in the last YouTube. They've said that they're going to look at their leverage profile. They use that phrase, our leverage profile. Well, companies don't use the word leverage unless they plan on taking out debt. And this company used to have a shitload of debt in it, hundreds of millions of dollars. So it seems very likely, or no, that's not the right word. It's definitely not likely. It seems very possible that they could take out 1 to 2 turns of debt and dividend the entire $8 or $9 to shareholders as a plan B, or do what's more likely, do a tender for a third of the company at $25 a share or $22 a share or something to give shareholders liquidity that wanted out, that couldn't get out because of the buyout failed. Remember, the management team was going to run this as a private company. It was going to make a lot of money both in the buyout and then also getting equity in the LBO after the fact. So this breaking is going to cost the CEO alone millions and millions of dollars. He probably would have been given 3 or 4% of the sweat equity in the LBO, which could have made him tens of millions of dollars in the future. And then he also would have made millions of dollars from his stock options that would have been cashed out $29. I can assure you that both he and the largest shareholders, who is Oaktree, will do whatever they can to have a capital return event that is sizable. And it's not to keep the stock from going down. It's to create value for the shareholders just the same way the process did before that. So that's one outcome. And that's my base, not my base case, it's my bear case outcome, is that they do a return of capital. Do they give us $3? Do they give us $2? Give us $5? Give us $10? And then do they give us, $15 based on some leverage? I have no idea what that's going to be. Doesn't matter. This kind of business should probably trade at 20 times earnings. And, you get to a $40 stock price, beginning, middle of next year based on that. Will it go there? Of course it won't go there immediately. But if it's a $1.50 earnings and then the out year is going to be $1.75 or $1.80 or $2, then yeah, you're going to get there pretty quickly. You're going to get to $40. And it's $23 right now. And that's 18 months from now. So I don't really care if the deal closes. I would like it to close because that makes it easier. But if it doesn't close, whatever. And then the other outcome that should not be ignored is a South Korean buyer shows up. All the math I just told you is available to anybody with a calculator. So South Korea has private equity firms. They don't have as many as China. They don't have as many as the United States. But they have private equity firms, and they can put some leverage on it, and they could buy it at $29 a share, or $25 a share, or $28 a share, or $32 a share. I don't fucking know what they're going to pay for it. You could also have one of the strategic people in Korea buy it. That's less likely. The reason why it's less likely for strategic to buy it in Korea is because a lot of these people are customers of MagnaChip. And if one buys them, one customer, then the other customers probably don't want to work with MagnaChip because for competitive reasons. So it's more likely that it would be a financial buyer in Korea. I'm sick of MagnaChip. It and Groupon are my biggest positions. MagnaChip is like a 35 or 40% position here, something like that. Huge. And yeah, I mean, I would rather it just break and then we can move on, or we get to, the white knight scenario, whatever. But who knows? Who knows how it plays out? I like it. It's uncorrelated, or it is not uncorrelated to the market because it's pricing in a big break. So, or it's pricing a big percentage chance of a break. So clearly it's going to move with the stock market. If the market goes down a lot, it might go down. But ARBs and the sell side, again, recurring theme of mine, getting this very wrong. By the way, I've been a consistent opponent of sell side. If you want an opinion, a proof of sell side not understanding special situations, please let me just point you to Dell in the last 3 years, when every single sell side firm, this is a large cap, mega cap technology company, used these ridiculous sum of the parts conglomerate discounts on Dell and VMware, when it was always in the interest of VMware to be spun out by Dell. And all they had to do was look at the incentives between VMware, Dell, Silver Lake, and Michael Dell. But instead, they put these ridiculous, conglomerate discounts. Not a single sell sider had a thesis that at some point precisely 5 years from when they bought it, they would spin VMware out. So my antagonism of the sell side when it comes to special situations is very warranted. When it comes to MagnaChip, these are a bunch of semiconductor analysts. I mean, they don't have any idea about the special situation angle of it. And then when it comes to the ARBs just look at where it was trading the day before, they announced there was a newspaper article on the company. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how absurd that is. It was trading at $12 in January. Why don't we use $12 then, right? It way outperformed all the semiconductor stocks from January to February. Way outperformed. Wait, you're telling me stocks don't have to trade exactly with a semiconductor index? So let's use $12 as our break, right? I mean, the stocks move huge on a given daily basis. That's just a random point in time, and you can actually do fundamental analysis on this. And the fundamental analysis will tell you that the break price is up, assuming they do a capital return the same day it breaks. That might not be the case. They might be told that the regulators are going to block it, and they haven't had time to issue a press release within a minute of it being blocked to announce to the market. But I can assure you they have a contingency plan in place, and it won't take more than a few weeks to announce it if it does break. So I sleep well with MagnaChip. I'm not worried about it. Any MagnaChip questions? Oh, a lot of questions. I turned my screen off so I can think. Do you think they regret having chosen Chinese PE? At this point, could be SK, PRC, and US, all of them to be able to have input. What's best way to play this? Options? Oh, a lot of questions for you. If I could drag you on for many more months, right? Is it $2 of any regular blog sit? What's your favorite idea right now? Wow. Fat Eddie? Are you fat? Is your name Fat Eddie? Are you Fat Eddie? And what's the 423? I'm not going to answer any of your questions until you tell me if you're fat or beast, and what the 423 stands for. That's odd. Usually when you put numbers after your name, you put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. I will answer every one of those questions if you tell me your height, your weight, and what the 423 stands for. And then I'll answer all 5 of those questions. It seems fair. Your name's Fat Eddie. You're fat shaming yourself. But till you answer that, I'm going to go on to the next thing, though. So Groupon, very quickly on Groupon, and then we'll talk about PSTH. Gil, please don't answer for Fat Eddie. Fat Eddie is going to tell us what the 423 is. But that's a good guess. April 23rd. Okay, Fat Eddie's talking. BMI is normal. Well, then why are you fat shaming other people with the name Fat Eddie? Am I reading it right? Maybe your name is Faded Dye. Oh, that's dark. Faded Dye 423. Gil. 23rd is his birthday. Is the 4? Is it April? April 23rd, Fat Eddie? Can I even call you Fat Eddie if your BMI is normal? I feel like this is, I don't know. It's 2021. I think I'm going to get a lot of trouble for this. Right, David? David should be Fat David Taggart, 423. I've never actually seen a photo of David, just to be clear. I fear getting a higher BMI. Do you eat like a fat person, Eddie? All right. This is my favorite part of the day, by the way. Fat Matt. I also might not know how to spell, so I may be fast. Oh, Fast Eddie. Oh no, is that what happened? Fat Dave 810. I'm fat because of COVID, bro. Hey, Travis. I'm perpetually skinny off of stress and drinking. No working out whatsoever. Very skinny. I gorge. Okay, let me answer all your questions. So do they regret choosing a Chinese PE firm? Well, I'm guessing in hindsight, yeah. If they would have chosen a US PE firm, I think it would have got done, but it would have had the same issues in South Korea about a US firm taking over the jobs. That wouldn't have changed at all, I don't think. And China might have blocked it. China might have said, we do a lot of business with MagnaChip, and we don't want a United States company owning it. Though, how ironic, it's traded in America, and every shareholder is American except for the management team. At this point, could be SK, PRC, and US all soon be able to have input? Correct. Which means that the only way if this deal gets killed, Fat Eddie, Fast Eddie, then the only way anybody can ever buy this company is South Korea, which actually, thank you. I missed my last point. If there's 10 people that want to buy this thing above $20, and 4 of them still could be making a bid at any point, and they're all a mix of strategic and financial. So the financial guys have no synergies, right? It's all a financial proposition. My point is, there's no synergy. There's no way to make the math work better once you pay the 29. You're paying 29. There's nothing to cut. Okay. And then finally, if you have the two largest superpowers in the world interested in acquiring this technology, or worried about China acquiring technology, and then you have South Korea worried about this leaving their country, even though it's a $1 billion enterprise value. Could it possibly be that MagnaChip is a pretty interesting company and it's worth more than 10 times earnings? I mean, shit. I mean, GameStop trades at 8,000 times earnings, so there's no earnings. I mean, you go pull the comps of MagnaChip in the proxy. There's no comp for MagnaChip. And you look at their growth rates and their earnings multiples and their leverage profiles, and you will not find a single stock at the valuation of MagnaChip with the growth rate it has and with the leverage profile. It is by far the cheapest stock in every one of those companies. Some of those earnings are declining or they're flat. So if you do an actual model analysis and compare those companies to MagnaChip with its growth profile, you can't get close to it. My point is, the market has told you that this is an interesting company. You had a vetted, very robust auction process, 10 companies. I'm rounding to 10, but it was about 10 were there in the bidding. There was 4 left at the end. I mean, it's wonderful. What's the best way to play this? Options? No, actually. I think right now the best way to play MagnaChip is just owning stock. I own options when I'm worried about downside, and I own options when I think that there is a better return on my capital for that call spread than if I own the stock. If there's no downside here, then I'm not worried about risk, right? So if in the heat of the moment it goes to 18 or 19 or $20, so be it. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen. You know, anything could happen. So for me, it's just owning common. It could drag on for many months, right? Does it get $2 if any regulator blocks it? It's a good question, Fat Eddie. This is all in my last YouTube, and it's also in the proxy. So they get, if China blocks it, they get like $2.50. If Korea blocks it, they get $2. If the US blocks it, they get $1.50, something like that. And then if both Korea and the US block it, they get 2, I think. So the answer is yes. Doesn't matter who blocks it. They get a significant breakup fee. What's my favorite idea right now? I'm almost done with the Fat Eddie questions. I don't know what my favorite idea is right now. I'm obviously a little bit upset about IMVT because I didn't think that would go up a lot on this update. I think I mentioned that in the last YouTube. I thought it would be flat up a little. I got rid of all my July options many months ago. I think that my best idea right now would have to be still Groupon, which I'm going to get to after I talk about PSTH. And I think that PSTH is super intriguing in the short term, but I have no idea where that goes. So, or how that goes. Let's see what we got here. Glenn, this is making me comfortable. I'm going to like food, going back in keto soon. You guys, you know, if you guys want to turn this into a Weight Watchers YouTube, you have the wrong host. I'm like 125 pounds, dripping wet, like 6'5". Not the right audience for this. So PSTH, very briefly. A few weeks ago, Ackman came out and said that he's been working on a deal since November. He said that it's the same exact company he's been working on since November, that in the coming weeks, not months, either they will sign an agreement or they'll move on. That was like 2.5 weeks ago. And then last Tuesday, I think he had a conference call with Pershing Holdings, his hedge fund, his public hedge fund. And he said, quote, nothing has changed. And he thinks something will be done in the next couple weeks, or they will alert the market and move on. So my thoughts are this. When he came out 2.5 weeks ago, it kind of blew it all up, saying that he's working on this since November and it'll either get done in the next few weeks or it won't. I think that was obviously a sign to the seller that Ackman's ready to move on. And I think if the seller was pissed about his disclosures, and for all we know, the seller knew he was going to disclose this. I'm sure he probably did tell them that it would have died pretty quickly after that, within days, is my guess. Fast forward to last week, said nothing has changed. We will alert you if something breaks. I think it's very positive. I think it's very positive that we are sitting here now on Tuesday and we have not gotten a press release or an 8K that the deal is broken. Because I do think Ackman will put out an 8K as soon as possible when they announce, when the seller walks and they say, we're not interested in doing this deal anymore. Because it's so complex, and remember, Ackman didn't say it was going to be done within days a month ago or 3 weeks ago. He said in weeks. So it's still totally on the time frame that he said 2.5 weeks ago and the time frame he said last week. So my idea here is that no news is good news. I remain with a very complex position. PSTH always makes me try to sound intelligent or something. It's not making you try to sound intelligent. It just is complex. I do not own just common in PSTH. The only common I own has covered calls associated with it, and I own all these conversions. I'm short some puts, not as many as I once was, because I expect a big move in the next few weeks. And then I also put on, which you can still do, I think, I put on a decent size July 2nd, 27.50 30 call spread. I paid 36 cents for it. It might be lower today. I didn't try to buy any today. And the idea there is you're getting kind of 7-to-1 odds that he A, signs a deal in the next month, and B, that the market likes it and it goes above $30. The B is just as elusive as the A, because most SPACs deals in markets are hating. So it could very much go down on the announcement of an agreement. But again, I have like 30 basis points in my portfolio in that. I'm excited about what happens in the next 2 weeks. Every day we don't hear anything, I think is good news, not bad news. I also own, I never talked about this yet, I also own a very small position in NVAX call spreads, June call spreads, expire in 3 weeks. They're 180 200s and they're 160 180s, so really 160 200s, but most of them are 180 200s. You could buy those for like $1.75, so you're getting like 11 or 12 to 1. The market is just exhausted here. They're waiting for data and it never comes. And I think that getting those kind of odds, if it ends up being that the safety profile here is better than Moderna and Pfizer, and if you have the efficacy data that's somewhat like it, you have a best-in-class COVID vaccine, and it's likely we'll need boosters and we'll need COVID vaccines forever. And I like those odds. So I have 50 basis points on in that. And finally, we'll talk Groupon, unless you have any other questions. Groupon's more of the same. The country is opening up, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. Go look at open table data for the last week. In the United States, there are more people now eating at restaurants than there were this time in 2019. Okay, and if you go back to January or February, it was 50%. And in April, it was like 25% less. Now, this is a very correlative, though not scientific, measure of how the locals business is doing. And I assume that local business is going to just explode over the next 3 months. Now, the question remains is whether or not Groupon can capture that. And I think the answer has to be yes, because you see what happened in March and April in Groupon. They said that the United States locals business in April was tracking at 71%, I think, of 2019 levels, which is very close to what the open table data was. I think for the month of April, the open table data was down 20%, something like that, versus Groupon's down 29%. And in January and February, they both were down like 50%. again, it's not, restaurants are a small part of Groupon's business. The question you have to ask yourself is whether or not demand is going to be so huge for all companies in the summer that no one needs to market or discount their business. Well, I don't think that's true. And we're talking about a gigantic market that will always have subpar players that needs to advertise. I went to Groupon, and I encourage you all to do this. Groupon, for the most part, is a pretty shitty website. And most people get it from their app. So I download the app. I hope I would, since I have like a 45% position in this thing. It's 45% delta adjusted, by the way. So that means I don't have 45% of my portfolio in it. My common position is like a 15% position, and all the rest is call spreads going out so many months. October, December, and January mostly. So what does it mean if the businesses are booming? Oh, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. So what I was going to say was you should go on the Groupon app and put in a few different cities and see what they offer there. And you'll see a lot of really big businesses that are advertising on Groupon. In San Diego is a lot of the same things I've seen over the years: whale watching cruises and things with huge capacity. And every dollar they get incremental is free, or 100%, gross profit. So those kind of businesses are the ones that no matter what the surges in demand in the summer, they will never be at capacity, right? You can't sell out every whale watching trip. You can't sell out every kayak rental, in Mission Beach. And those are the kinds of things you see on there. I continue to believe that Groupon is going to go much higher, and it has every element of a stock that I like. It's completely underfollowed by both buy side and sell side. The sell side universally hates it. There's one guy that has a buy on it. There is something going on behind the scenes. There has not been an insider trade since June of last year. There's still an interim CEO there 15 months after the fact. And it's cheap. It's cheap. It's cheap. They could do well over $3 a share in earnings next year on a $47 stock. Next quarter will be the first quarter in many years that Groupon is eligible for the S&P 600 small cap index. I'll repeat that. Groupon used to never be as profitable as they are now. They're now a very profitable company. This will be the fourth quarter in a row they've made net income once you get to next quarter. And all the numbers are too low. Sell side just takes whatever the company tells them and they blow it out. You can go look yourself at what the numbers have been the last 3 quarters. Huge beats. So the setup's great to me. It's very hard for me to see how I lose here. Clearly, as it gets more expensive, not here. And as time goes on, you run the risk that the new business model transition doesn't work and that they continue to bleed customers like they did the previous years. And if that happens, then, we're in a lot of trouble. But that's many quarters from now to worry about. They have the tail at their back, the wind. They have their wind at their back. They have their tail on their ass. And by the way, Maisie got a haircut today. You guys want to see Maisie? I'll bring Maisie over here. Oh. This is Maisie. Say hi, Maisie. Hello. Hello, you two bag holders. Why do you listen to this moron? He took me off the streets of Tijuana, and then I have been nothing but a pain in the ass since then. Anyway, she's cute. Okay. Oi. So, I'm hot. Oh my God. Kid Dynamite just showed up. Did you just see me kissing the dog? Fucking douchebag. Okay. Oh. So, yeah, my highest conviction trade is a Groupon. And I'm very excited to see what happens over the next few months there. I think that covers everything. Let's see what else. Does IB report the delta juxtaposition or do you calculate it? Hey, Pravin or Pravin, you can find it on IB. You have to go into your trader workstation and then go analytical tools at the top and then scroll all the way down to, oh, sorry, wait, trading tools. Where is it? It's called Risk Navigator. I don't know why there it is. Yeah, sorry. Analytical tools, scroll all the way down in Risk Navigator, and then click Open My Portfolio. And you'll see the delta adjusted position in dollars and in shares for all your names. Now, IB's software is a complete piece of shit. So if you have to sometimes restart your Interactive Brokers to have it populate all the options. It doesn't always work. I think we should just take question and answers from Kid Dynamite 4. Assuming that might not even be Kid Dynamite, it might be like an imposter. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. Today sucked. But in the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'll make more money off of it, right? Any other questions? I think I covered everything else. Let me see what else I got in my portfolio here that I want to talk about. No. I think that's good. Oh, some people ask me if Roivant might not be able to complete its SPAC now because of the blow up today. And the answer to that is very likely no. When they announced the SPAC a month ago, both the PIPE buyers and the SPAC management team had to have known the vast majority of what was going to happen here. And they knew that with their eyes wide open going into that deal. And the SPAC is only contingent on the PIPE being done, which, it's irrevocable. And there's no reason to think that the deal will break, or they can't even break it if they want to. So I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. In fact, my friend that did the call with the management team today asked them, is there any risk of the SPAC breaking, or what's the risk of it not closing? And the CEO didn't even know how to answer it. He said, I might be in possession of material non-public information. I don't know if it's public. He goes, I don't know if this is public or not, so I can't answer. He just didn't know whether or not what I just told you is true, which all you have to do is look at a filing, that there's no risk from a vote perspective or a risk from a PIPE perspective of it closing. So that shouldn't be an issue. Famous last words. Thanks. Still great returns on Groupon and Dell. Thanks, Nilesh. Yeah, I've had a great year. I mean, look, for all that's happened with this, my portfolio is like 10% down from its highs, and it's doubled from I've doubled. I'm up 100% year to date. So, and I've had some really bad stuff happen in the last 2 months, right? I had MagnaChip go from 26 to 23, which was a huge position. I had Groupon go from 63 to 47. And now Immunovant blew up. I have another small company which I talked about once on here, but not through giving the investment thesis. AMPY, which is a oil and gas company I own, and BSM, which is another oil and gas company I own. They've done really well. Those are my other two big positions. So I'm not pitching or giving you thesis of. I'm just letting you know. And what do you think about GraphTech? I have no idea what GraphTech is. What is the deal with MagnaChip? Oh, Stan, you are funny. You come on to a YouTube 58 minutes into a live event, and you think I'm going to go repeat everything I said in the last 58 minutes just for you, Stan? Stan Brand? I'm just kidding. You can find it. Just go back, and when this ends, just rewind. And I think I started talking about MagnaChip around like 25 minutes or 30 minutes into this. I bombed. Anyway, you could find it on here. It's like 25 minutes in. Can I follow you on Twitter? It would help my self-esteem. Yeah, just at me, as long as your name is Fat Eddie 423, or I know who you are. Just say I'm Fat Eddie. All right. I guess that's it. My daughter should go from school soon. Yeah, but just, okay, I'll look for you, Fat Eddie. No, just send me an at. at me on Twitter. Do you know my account? Given to tweet. GIVEN, the number 2, TWET. Oh yeah, let me talk about BIB. And someone asked about AMC. Those are actually really good questions. So what do I think about Mudrick and the AMC thing? Whole lot of nothing, right? I mean, AMC is trying to sell as many shares as they can. Somehow they have found 8 more million shares in the basement of their, of their house, and they sold to Mudrick, and Mudrick blew it out today. That's it. Just way to raise more money and delever the balance sheet. If they could, if AMC could, they would sell 1 billion shares at $30. Yes, 1 billion if they could. They're taking advantage of an irrational stock price. So good for Mudrick. I feel bad for the retail investors that are buying this shit, but whatever. BIB, I don't own it. And I think that is probably one of the most fascinating special sits I've seen in a long, long time. So the story with BIB, for those of you that are interested in sticking around, if not, just fucking hang up. You don't have to be here. Is that they have an Alzheimer's drug, and it'll be the first approved Alzheimer's drug in, I don't know, 20 years or something, or 25 years. And the scientific community, for the most part, thinks it doesn't work. Or if it works very mildly. They had 2 trials. One failed the phase 3, and one was a success in the phase 3, I think. And FDA took it to AdCom. AdCom is when you ask outside experts about their opinion about the drug. And the FDA showered praise on the drug in what they call the briefing documents, which is the things that they show the members of the AdCom before the event to get them prepared for the event. And it's very odd to me that the FDA was so happy about this drug, given the fact that it's very controversial. Usually they would take the other approach. They would be very skeptical and hope that the panel proves them otherwise. So the FDA praised it. The panel completely shit on it. And I think the vote was like 1-12 or something. Only one voted for, and I think that might have been the patient advocate or something, which is the person that always votes for these drugs. So the conventional wisdom was that this is dead, that the drug's not going to be approved, based on the entire panel saying there's no proof of efficacy. And I think there's also safety issues with this drug. So you fast forward, the FDA said, no, we might want to approve this. And to add palace intrigue, they added a major amendment to the drug. All you BMYRT folks know what a major amendment is. They added 3 months more time to the PDUFA date, which is now going to be next week, I think Monday or something. And the FDA, when it adds a major amendment, there's a 90 to 92% chance they approve the drug, historically. They only add a major amendment if they think that'll get them to approval. And Biden last week, during a random speech, totally unrelated to medicine, said that if we don't do something about Alzheimer's, we're going to have hospitals filled with Alzheimer's patients. And he's never mentioned Alzheimer's, I don't think. He used to mention cancer in his campaign trail, but because his son died from cancer, and obviously it's a good thing to talk about in a campaign trail, curing cancer, whatever. But why did Joe Biden mention Alzheimer's last week? And no, it's not because of you MAGA fucks that has Alzheimer's. That's not why he mentioned Alzheimer's. He mentioned Alzheimer's possibly because he's preparing for the press releases of his administration approved the first drug in 20 years for Alzheimer's. And you can kind of tout that as being a success. He would, or could, I should say, could absolutely know legally if this drug is being approved or not. In fact, the FDA knows without a shadow of a doubt right now whether they're approving this in the next week or they're rejecting it. Decision's been made, done. They definitely know. Okay. So if the FDA knows, then the FDA commissioner knows, and the FDA commissioner, who's interim, Janet Woodcock, could tell anybody in the administration. It's totally legal it's not a secretive thing inside the FDA. Okay. I think, I don't know. She's a diplomat. So there's no kind of roping off between the FDA and the White House, as far as I know. So what do I think happens? I think it gets approved because I don't know why they would have done the major amendment. I don't know why they would have, Biogen would have touted it last week. The part I struggle with is, do they have a very strict label with it so that it's commercially not as attractive as it would have been? I'm doing this because like it hurts right here for some reason. Will the label be restricted in some way? So maybe you have to be monitored for safety events, or maybe you could only give the drug to a certain subset of Alzheimer's patients, or I don't know what the hell they could do. But they would do some element of that. Or maybe they would make you come back 3 months or 6 months later to see what your cognitive decline is. Of course, there's placebo effect there too. So I think it's approved. I don't know if it gets approved in a blue sky scenario. I've been looking at trades to put on, and I put on nothing. So I will very likely put on nothing. One thing I've been floating with is like shorting like a 220 put in June of next week, and buying like a 300 call, and then selling 2 375 calls. So it's a -1 220 plus 300 minus 2 375. The cost is about 0, I think. And you only lose money if it goes below 220 or if it goes above 450. And the only way this fucker is going to 450 is if, the FDA approves it and then announces that, it causes erectile dysfunction too. So I don't think it's going to 450. The risk would be that it goes below 220, but even then there's other events for BIAB in the next 12 months. And I'm told that you can look at the options market. It's very unlikely this goes below 200 in a CRL. So your risk there would be $20 on the downside. I think that's a pretty good trade. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'm not going to do anything, I don't think. But it could be the biggest, most controversial biotech binary in years. And really, nobody has any idea where it's going to go. 50-50. That's what it's pricing in, 50-50. Maybe like a slight, favoritism to being approved in some manner. But so 60-40. But that's what the options market's pricing in. Good question. Nilesh? Is it Nilesh or Nilesh? How come you're not Fat Nilesh? Fat Nilesh 423. Anybody else? I can't wait to see my daughter. My daughter just came home from school, I think. And I'm going to come out and she's going to be like, I'm like, hey, how was school today? What'd you do? And she always says, nothing, I don't remember, or something. And she never asked me this, but work was fine. I lost like 3% of my portfolio. And I just did a YouTube to strangers on the internet about stocks that I know nothing about while I was drinking wine at 2 p.m. I mean, the FDA should come up with a drug that keeps me from procreating. And it's not called birth control, wise asses. It should be like mat control. Keep me away from anything that can create more of me. Okay, Nilesh. Nilesh, okay. Take care, everybody. Peace. Let's hope for better news for the next time I'm on here. Take care. Bye.